I just woke up from a coma.
I'm several light years from my apartment. And I'm not an astronaut. I'm not an astronaut. I'm not an astronaut.
If you don't go, you die. With the rest of us.
I understand the stakes. I do. My place is in the classroom.
Project Hail Mary, a crowd pleaser for both better and worse. This movie retains framework DNA of both Phil Lord and Chris Miller's directorial personality, infused with Ryan Gosling and a co-star having plenty of improv time. It emulates aspects of several films, including 2001 Space Odyssey in visual definition, Arrival in creating shared language system, Gravity in action scene tracking in space, Interstellar in action, theme, and visual identity, and others. It's also full of film references, a blessing and a curse because it sidesteps character development for reminding us of everything I just listed and more. It is just too long and imbalanced with creative aspects. Ultimately, I enjoyed it enough, but the first act is so much exposition and barely any character except from Gosling. Once you meet Rocky, the film finds a foundation within friendship and belonging, but something that happens in the third act makes you reflect on the movie and tells you the stakes are high, but the results don't feel indicative of such. Having a non-linear structure hurts the pacing as it's played off for one singular dramatic moment. You feel a level of predictability set in when everything feels so safe. But the cinematography, visual definition, use of color, and Ryan Gosling come together just enough. But this had so much potential because the strengths here are good, but the weaknesses hold it back. Let's talk spoilers. Everything on Earth feels unnecessary and too long. That is the whole first act of the movie. Yet this film doubles back to Earth in the past in several interstitial moments as Grace gets his memory back from amnesia. It's all to bait the carrot of why Grace even took the mission when he was so reluctant to do so. It's an oxymoron because Sanjay Huller's character directly tells the audience that Ryland Grace literally has no family, not even a dog. He doesn't want to go on a suicide mission. Eventually we learn he was drugged and forced to go on the mission near the end of the film. Why was this the decision? It would have made much more sense to do all of this in the first act. He's obviously detached from humanity to a degree and never really thinks of Earth in sentimental ways other than unique discovery, hence his paper on water. Is there any reason for this to be in a non-linear format other than revealing he was forced to go on the mission? A decision which has no emotional recourse because he doesn't think about it after it happens. Further, the film explores his loneliness so carelessly and quickly. We follow that for a brief few scenes before we meet Rocky, and he has a fellow goofball alien BFF. Another issue is that this film creates problems and solves them almost immediately. I do genuinely really like the second act, and I think the third act is fine, but Grace and Rocky solve their dilemmas within mere minutes of them being formed. People have called this hard science fiction, but I don't really see it that way. The ideas here are rooted in science, but the implementation of them is simplified and antiquated. Going fishing for resources in an atmosphere, making models to summarize grand issues in small ways. I understand that this is how science works, but it's not like it's sticking to hard science fact. I found the scene where Rocky sacrifices himself for Grace to be really powerful. And then, after an Earth memory moment and a little downtime on the ship, Rocky self-revives. With higher stakes of the overall mission, Grace never feels disposition too often, so when a moment of dire consequence and growth happens, it's undone to bring back a crowd favorite. That moment confirmed to me that everything will be fine. Grace is in no real danger, and this creative crew would rather yet again bait the carrot to elicit sadness or worry before taking a quick break and quelling our dismay. The film does exactly that. It only makes sense as Grace doesn't really have a connection to anything on Earth, and he and Rocky are almost like mirror versions of one another, even down to like certain similar societal concepts that he asks Rocky in the movie. This puts me in a difficult place as the runtime is massive, 2 hours and 36 minutes. I think you can at least compartmentalize the first act to half its runtime, similarly with the third act. The bulk of the appeal here comes from the Grace and Rocky dynamic. It's fun and entertaining with beautiful visuals, and I liked being on the ride just enough until the lack of consequence or deeper development looms in the back of your mind near that third act moment. I just did not like the editing in this movie. Newer films have too many quick cuts to keep the pacing in constant momentum, but the pacing suffers going between Earth and space when only one environment is truly compelling, and like all those films that it takes inspiration from, those movies let scenes play out and breathe, where you can barely get a breath in between jokes in this film. So while it's good to go on an adventure and keep it lighthearted, how can you necessarily make that viable when you have seemingly grim implications played with very little circumstance moments to substantiate that? I mean, the most stressful thing is when they are in the atmosphere on that planet. Think about the times that Grace hits a computer or swings out in agony only for the solutions to come so quickly after. I'm in a very difficult spot with this because I really admire half of it, but I've got glaring issues, and I otherwise really like Lord Miller. I'm not exactly sure what Drew Goddard did here because Lord Miller and Gosling did so much improv, and this is an adaptation of a novel, but one seemingly far lighter in tone and definition than the book. It still has an identity within belonging and a beautiful universe, but I come away mixed, and I'm docking my previous grade from the short review I did earlier to give this a 5 out of 10. It's alright by all means, but I come away 50-50 on my engagement with pros and cons. It's undoubtedly entertaining, but just like The Martian, it's rife with references and often lives and dies by them when the premise itself is interesting and original. Thank you all for listening. This one is a bummer. I was really hoping to like this one, but that is just how it goes. Tune in next week. I'll be talking about Julia Ducournau's Alpha. I'm so interested. Check out Titane and Raw if you have not, or if you have any interest in like weird French horror, because those are both fantastic. And I might watch the Mario movie. I really don't want to, but and I was pretty cynical on the first, but we'll see. Anywho, thank you as always for tuning in. I hope wherever you are, you're doing well in life, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks. Bye.